Most of the theories around what constitutes intelligence have been generated in the West, particularly in the United States, and this is reflected in the design of the most commonly used intelligence tests.
One of the criticisms or issues that often comes up with IQ testing is the fact that some IQ tests have been constructed by basically white middle-class researchers from a Western background. And the question arises, are those IQ tests going to be fair to other groups or ethnic groups around the world?
The intelligence tests that have been constructed by Western psychologists have dominated intelligence testing on a worldwide basis.
Ken Richardson is a psychologist and author who has written extensively about the influence of culture on intelligence.
Western psychologists have a view of culture as something as kind of a clothing on the essential intelligence or cognitive processing underneath. This is entirely false.
One way in which culture is relevant to intelligence testing is that what might be seen as intelligent in one culture might not be in another, and psychologists need to be sensitive to this.
In the West, we tend to see an important component of intelligence as being speed of processing. So a lot of our IQ tests are timed tests, and you get extra points for doing it quickly. Now, there are other cultures that do not think processing speed is important. They think accuracy is important. So if I'm testing someone from a very different culture and they get a low score on timed tests, I have to ask myself what that means. Does it mean that there's something wrong with their brain and they've slowed down? Or could it be that they come from a background where they just don't see why I'm so interested in how fast they can complete a test? There's quite a famous case example of somebody being given a memory test that involved a story about a lady being robbed. And when asked to repeat back everything they could remember from the test, instead of repeating back in the way that we were expecting, which is to repeat what was said, they started expressing surprise as to what was this lady doing out on her own? Why was she in a position where she was robbed? In my culture, that wouldn't happen. Now, ironically, the fact that they could have a huge conversation about it indicated that they had memorised it. Was that test fair for that patient? Because they were so preoccupied about thinking the story was ludicrous that were they processing it in the same way that you or I might process it?
So when administering and interpreting intelligence tests, psychologists need to be aware of an individual's cultural background, especially as the test norms, which are used to interpret the results, are specific to the population of a particular country, for example, the UK.